A father stabbed 102 times in his local park.
I can't understand why anybody would attack somebody like Jim.
Legal highs, what you need to know.
I don't think kids realise that something you can buy on the high street can probably cause you to become psychotic.
And the office affair that ended in murder.
She's gone, lying somewhere as if nobody loved her.
Catching the criminals, protecting the public. This is Crime Watch. Hello and welcome to Crime Watch. We are live for the next hour with this month's latest crime investigations, news and appeals. There are dozens of detectives in the studio right now and they are all ready for your call.
Yes, and tonight they need your help to find this gang who terrorised a family in their home, making off with a haul of shotguns and jewellery.
They threatened to shoot Ben.
If you don't tell me, I'll take your kids and I'll shoot him.
What do you do when somebody does that to you?
Shut up!
That's really tough.
Plus, I'll have my latest collection of faces, people wanted for fraud, torture and GBH. And some incredible CCTV, including this hugger-mugger who hugged so tightly his victim fell unconscious.
But we begin with the story of 33-year-old James Attfield. The father of 5 had survived a pretty tough time in recent years. In 2010, he was run over and left in a coma. He recovered, but with life-changing injuries. You would have thought he had suffered enough, but in March, he was brutally murdered in his local park. In the last few hours, 2 men have been arrested in connection with the case, but inquiries continue, and we still very much need your help.
James Attfield grew up in Essex. He was the eldest of 6 children.
He was just our little Jim, very well-mannered, always very helpful. Yeah, he'd help everybody and anybody. And he sort of went from gentle Jim to gentleman Jim.
4 years ago, he suffered a brain injury after being hit by a car. He made this video about the accident for the charity Headway.
Well, I had a coma and I was in the right way, apparently.
He was very weak down one side. It seemed to affect his balance. His speech was a little bit slurred and a little bit slow. And he just wanted to do things that he used to do, but he couldn't.
My mind works all right, but my body sometimes lets me down. Some people see you've got a disability and think, oh, you must be stupid.
Yeah, I think it probably did affect him, you know, with talking to people generally. He tended to talk to older people more, because I think possibly he thought they'd be a little bit more understanding, maybe.
James's largely solitary lifestyle means it's difficult for police to be sure of his daily routine.
Ticket number 102. Please.
But they have been able to piece together parts of his final day.
Right, mate. Hi, how can I help?
I have 350, please, mate.
Just after 9 a.m, he went to the post office on North Hill, where he withdrew £350 cash.
And there we go then, OK.
CCTV shows him shopping in Sainsbury's. He stopped for a cigarette, then popped into his local newsagents. It's thought after this, he then headed home. By around 5 p.m, he was out again, this time at the 10-pin bowling alley in the town centre. He drank a pint alone before leaving. At around 6 p.m, he was at the River Lodge pub, where he was a regular customer. He spent around 4 hours at the bar, drinking on his own. By 9 minutes past 10, he was gone. Unusually, he left behind 2/3 of his pint. It's thought James then walked into Castle Park. It would seem he headed towards the lake. What happened next is unclear. James was stabbed 102 times, mainly to his head and chest. He had multiple defense injuries to his hands. He was left alone in the park to die. He may have been there for several hours. James was found at 5:45 a.m, still alive but unconscious. Paramedics tried to save him, but he died at 6:30 in the morning.
When I went to identify Jim, that was probably the hardest thing. Because I suppose part of you thinking it's been a mistake, it's not him, it can't be. I can't understand it. I can't understand why anybody would attack somebody like Jim, because he wouldn't have provoked anything or done anything to upset anybody, not on purpose. And I try not to think too much about what actually happened, because it's, you know, that would be unbearable.
And well, Detective Inspector Anne Cameron from Essex Police is here. Thanks for joining us. A brutal attack, a sustained attack, and this was a very vulnerable man.
Yes, since James' accident in 2010, he's very fragile and would have easily been knocked over, which makes this attack even more macabre. The person who carried it out would have definitely been covered in blood, and they definitely had a weapon. We're very keen to locate that weapon, and if anybody saw somebody on the Saturday morning with blood on them, we would be keen to hear from them.
We should remind people 102 stab wounds. In pursuit of talking to people who may have seen something that they don't even realise was important, let's take a look at this CCTV that you've brought along for us, Anne. Just tell us about these people here.
Yes, we originally had 25 CCTV images that we were trying to identify the people. We have actually, thanks to the media, identified quite a number of them, and we are now down to 7 images. These are the ones we're showing you now, and we'd be keen to identify the people that are on here.
Yeah, if you think it's you, if you think you know the person, go online, check it out again, and get in touch with us tonight. There are other people that some witnesses who've spoken to you already say were in the park that night. Who were they?
Yes, we're desperately trying to locate a male and a female that were actually sitting on a bench near the lake, and they were there around midnight. There was also a male who was laying or sitting on the grass verge near the lake. We'd be very keen to identify and speak to those people.
OK, for now, and thank you very much indeed. if you can shed just any light at all on what happened to James that night, then I would urge you to do the right thing. Pick up the phone and give us a call. The number is going to be on the screen throughout the show. It's 02920 838 200. Martin.
Wanted faces now, starting with Charlie Casey, although he also uses the names John Casey or Charles O'Connor. The 24-year-old is wanted after a woman was stabbed at a holiday park in Dorset 2 weeks ago. At the end of April, Casey absconded from HMP Sudbury in Derbyshire, where he was serving a sentence for robbery and false representation. Casey, who has links to Slough and Gwent, is a member of the travelling community and has an Irish accent. Please consider him to be dangerous, so if you see him or know where he is, just call 999 immediately. Number 2 is Luke Jones. The 25-year-old is wanted in connection with an incident during which a man was held against his will and tortured for 2 days. Jones, who is known by the street names of Kid, K or Kilo, is originally from Birmingham but has links to West London. Jones usually wears a baseball cap and is considered to be extremely dangerous. If you see him, don't approach, just call 999 immediately. Next is Sarwar Ali, who's wanted in connection with the abduction and rape of a 12-year-old girl in Manchester in 2006. 38-year-old Ali, who's Iraqi and is in the country illegally, has a distinctive limp as a result of a car accident. Detectives think he may well be using fake identity. And finally for now is James Ward, but he also goes by the name James Clark. Detectives need to trace the 28-year-old in connection with a series of frauds worth more than £250,000, during which elderly and vulnerable victims were conned after being told their homes needed repairing. Ward, who has a large scar on his right cheek, has links to Essex, London, Nottingham and Surrey. He tends to change his appearance and he may be clean-shaven. He also often disguises his Irish accent. All the faces are on the website. If you know where they are, call and text the numbers on screen. Text will be charged at your standard message rate.
Now, the Kempley family from Harrogate run a successful food business and they live in this rather beautiful home on the outskirts of Harrogate. Not long before Christmas, David, the dad, was away for the weekend when the rest of the family returned to the house. With the kids upstairs and Mum Lee in the kitchen rustling up something to eat, it was, until that point, a typical family Friday night.
I've just been robbed by a gang. Please, Marie, I'm so frightened.
I love this place. We've put a lot of heart into it. It's a family home. The kids love it.
So I remember, playing cricket with my brother in the back garden, sisters playing on the trampoline. I feel safe, secure.
It's a happy home. I love it here. I absolutely love it. I went to pick my daughter up from the school bus, went and collected Ben from his friends, and then came home.
OK, come on then, let's go inside. Keys. Right, getting quickly, it's quite cold now. What are we having for tea tonight, Mum? I don't know, I was thinking maybe do some lamb or something.
I was going to make tea. Ben was sat watching television, and that's just normal on a school night.
I put my things away as I normally would and I'd turn the TV on. My younger sister was upstairs.
I was just moving around the kitchen and I could hear something. So I just turned to look at the door and then the door opened and 4 of them came in.
Sit down! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
And I screamed, and obviously Ben had heard me scream.
And at that point I knew something was wrong. And then everything happened. I was terrified and I kind of froze for a second. My first reaction was to run upstairs and find my younger sister. I kind of got hold of her, and then 2 men in balaclavas came up the stairs, one with a crowbar.
What's going on?
And then they took us downstairs, where my mum was.
Where's the safe?
It was chaotic. One was guarding me, and the other one seemed to be in charge, and they were shouting and demanding to know where the jewellery was, where the watches were, where the safe was. I was petrified. And also, I didn't know what they were going to do to the kids. So I was really scared, pathetic, I felt, actually, because I'm the mum and I wasn't in control of it.
But they were taking me upstairs. I was basically forced around the house to tell them where things were.
Don't take him!
Come on, keep moving!
Well, the threats they were posing was initially that they'd kill my mum and sister.
You try anything, your mum's dead, your sister's dead!
When you get told that by people you don't know, in balaclavas with crowbars, it's a serious threat.
You listen to me.
It was really horrible. I couldn't do anything.
Who are you? You're wasting my time!
I suppose I literally just did exactly what they told me.
I want to pick you up! Pick you up!
In that situation, you completely believe it. And it's one of the hardest things I've ever had to deal with in my life.
The most important thing seemed to be to find the guns, and I wouldn't tell them where anything was. So they threatened to shoot Ben.
If you don't tell me, I'll take your kids and I'll shoot him.
What do you do when somebody does that to you? That's really tough.
And it seemed so intentful, it was scary. And they took me through the kitchen into another room, which led to a room with the gun cabinet in.
Take it!
It was as if they knew it was there.
Stop that!
And they got into the cabinet. Guns are just a symbol of death.
Go! Get up!
The frightened bit disappeared. I got quite angry at one point because it was kind of like, I've had enough now. You've been in my house, you've taken my stuff, you've abused my kids. Get out. Ben was back at the side of us, so they grabbed hold of me and my daughter and they pushed us up the stairs, pushed us into the bathroom.
We could have been locked in there for God knows how long. We didn't even know what they were doing. They could have been lying, they could have come back, they might have been trying to find more stuff than they already had.
I was frightened initially because it went quiet.
My mum was in shock and she was trying to get out. She said she had to get out.
Ben calmly took over and undid the lock.
They could have been downstairs still. They could have been anywhere in the house, we didn't know. All we heard was them going down the stairs and they had shotguns and knives.
It's okay. Ben was saying, Mum, don't, stay upstairs. But I think I wanted to make sure they'd gone, so I shot downstairs and they'd disappeared.
Where they are.
I'm so proud of him, I can't begin to tell you. It was absolutely brilliant. He calmed me down. I went through all sorts of different emotions, from anger to scared to upset. He was completely calm all the way through. He just said, Mum, give them what they want, they'll go.
Sit back down!
No child should go through that. No 16-year-old should be put through that.
The things they put us through, and they benefit. I mean, they've benefited from something that's kind of affected us so hugely. And I just don't see how they could get away with that.
Do you know what? All I'd like to say is picture yourself in my position.
Emergency. I've just been robbed by a gang. Okay, whereabouts are you? Oh my God. Please, Marie, I'm so frightened.
Would you really be proud of somebody if they were a member of your family and they behaved like that? I wouldn't. I really wouldn't.
Well, Detective Inspector Andrea Kell joins me now. We're going to talk about those guns in just a moment. First of all, let's talk about... I mean, I have to say it was a substantial haul of jewellery that these guys got away with. Tell me more about it.
Yes, that's right. Items were stolen and pulled off Lee while she was being held hostage. Most noticeably, a 10-carat diamond pear-shaped ring worth £250,000. Also, a distinctive Patek Philippe complications watch worth over £100,000. Amongst other items, there was a diamond necklace, a Rolex watch, and bespoke cufflinks designed specifically for David, which are unique, and we have a sketch of these. I would appeal to anyone who's been offered these for sale to contact us.
Yes, valuable and distinctive. Give me some details on the guns, then. What went missing and what do you know about them?
The gang got away with 7 shotguns, 3 of which have been recovered. We urgently need to retrieve those that are still missing. They're described as a Krieghoff K80, a 12-bore over and under shotgun, a Beretta 12-bore DT model, and 2 Perezzi 12-bore over and under shotguns.
Tell me, there's a car that you're really interested in, a sighting of a car. What do we know about that?
Yes, at the time of the burglary, a dark Audi car was spotted very close to the property, driving back Lane Highburswith towards Tangley Lane. 2 men described in the late 20s were seen in the car. That evening, the Porsche taken by the gang was abandoned on Whitewall Lane, Highburswith. Again, if anyone was in the area, did they see anything?
it seems like they were really organised, these guys.
Yes, they appear to have known what they were looking for. We're appealing to anyone who's got information to think about what the family have been through, that the gang may still have firearms and be preparing to target another family. If you have information, please call in.
OK, Detective Inspector, for now, thank you very much indeed. There are more images of the stolen property on our website. If you've been offered any of it or can help in any way at all, then please, I would urge you to get in touch. Indeed, if you yourself have been a victim of crime, there is the Victim Support Line. Let me give you their number. It's 0845 30 30 900. You can speak anonymously about tonight's case to Crime Stoppers if you'd prefer. They are on 0800 555 111. Right, still to come. The devastating impact of legal highs. We're going to be speaking live to the top police and government officials responsible for their control. And the sculpture worth £3 million stolen to order or simply melted for scrap. But first, Matthew has got a roundup of the latest crime news.
Police investigating the disappearance of Madeleine McCann have sealed off a large area of scrubland in the Algarve resort of Praia de Luge. Madeleine was 3 when she went missing in the resort in 2007. Portuguese police are conducting the current operation and are expected to use ground-penetrating radar to search the area. The scrubland is being searched after a request from the Metropolitan Police, who today have been on site in Portugal. Lie detector tests are to be carried out on sex offenders in South Yorkshire. The force is training 2 officers to carry out the tests, which will be used to measure the risk posed by sex offenders living in communities, as well as those caught in possession of indecent images of children. South Yorkshire is one of only 2 forces in the UK using the initiative. The controversial technology is not used for regular police investigations in the UK, as it's not thought to be reliable enough. Now, fancy getting your hands on these luxury items? Well, Leicestershire Police have generated £1 million by selling goods seized from crooks online. Their eBay site has sold an Aston Martin for £63,000, as well as a Rolex watch for around £5,000. Other more unusual items include an armoured car and a microlight. All the goods were recovered under the Proceeds of Crime Act.
Time for some crimes caught on camera now, starting with that particularly cunning robbery in central London just a few weeks ago. 2 men walked together during the early hours of a Saturday morning. Now, they may look like friends, but in reality they've only just met. The man in the cap befriended the guy in the suit as he made his way home. Their conversation turns to martial arts, and the man in the cap offers to show the guy in the suit some moves. He grips him around the neck and squeezes. The hold causes the victim to lose consciousness and he crumples to the ground. The man in the cap then slips off his expensive watch and scarpers. The shocked victim comes round and realises his new friend and his valuable watch have vanished. He stole a Rolex worth £5 grand. Time to name this hugger-mugger tonight. It's lunchtime in Ilkley in West Yorkshire on a Thursday in April. A gang of masked men wearing blue boiler suits rush up to a jeweller's shop, accompanied by a stolen silver Honda. The gang attack one of the shop windows using a nail gun, trying to break the glass and get at the expensive watches inside. But the nail gun doesn't have the desired effect, so they take a more direct approach with an axe. The quick-thinking shop staff lower the blinds and bravely try to clear the window display as the gang continue to try and smash their way in. Eventually, the attackers make a hole in the glass, but were only able to grab 2 Rolex watches. They make off in the Honda after spotting an approaching police officer. Now, a witness captured the whole audacious yet somewhat unsuccessful raid on their camera. The gang were well masked, but someone out there knows who they are. Names, please. The number 357 bus pulls up on New Road in Waltham Forest on a Tuesday afternoon in March. A man in jeans and a dark body warmer gets on board using the middle doors. He pushes into the queue and speaks to the driver, who asks him to pay using his Oyster card. He refuses and walks off down the bus. When the driver tells him again to pay, he becomes aggressive. He climbs into the driver's cab and starts attacking him, punching him repeatedly to the head. He doesn't stop until he's pulled off by two other passengers, who throw him off the bus. But he's not done, kicking out at the doors and shouting at the driver. After a few minutes, he eventually walks off. Can you name this less than passive passenger? Who is he? If you need another look, all the CCTV you've just seen is on the website. Call and text the numbers on screen if you can help. So, more wanted faces now, starting with Russell Broughton, who is wanted after he slashed two men in the face during a bar brawl in Birmingham last year. He admitted the offences but failed to turn up at court for sentencing. The 44-year-old, who has used the name Martin Coughlin in the past, has links to the Castlevale, Erdington and King's Standing areas of Birmingham. He has numerous tattoos, including England written on his left forearm and a swallow on his right arm. He's a big guy at 6'3", and part of his left thumb is missing. He's considered to be dangerous, so steer clear and call 999 if you spot him. Next is Jeffrey Dewar. Police want to trace him after high-performance cars worth more than £500,000 were stolen. The cars, mainly taken during burglaries, were then shipped abroad using fake documents. 43-year-old Dewar, who also uses the names Peter Asare, James Assan and Kagbo Momo, has a Ghanaian accent and links to the Tottenham area of London. Number 7 is Osman Hussein Abdurrahman, a convicted sex offender who has failed to register with the authorities and has now gone missing. The 34-year-old, who's originally from Iraq, has links to Sheffield and Coventry. Finally, this is Maxwell Parsons. He was convicted in his absence of masterminding a scam which saw several high street banks defrauded of at least £2.5 million. 49-year-old Parsons has links to Manchester, Coventry, South Yorkshire, Nottinghamshire and Bristol, although police think he may have fled abroad. He's described as being impatient and easily agitated. So call and text on the usual numbers if you recognise any of today's faces. They're all on the website and available on the red button until midnight.
Now, novel psychoactive substances, or legal highs, as most people call them, seem to have had a major impact in the UK in recent years. Deaths linked to these drugs are now at an all-time high. So, with the summer festival season fast approaching, Martin has been to investigate what you need to know about legal highs.
We all know about the dangers of illegal drugs, but there are growing fears for a range of new substances which are untested, unregulated and widely available, so-called legal highs.
All drugs have side effects, and I don't think kids realise that something you can buy on the high street can probably cause you to become psychotic, seriously psychotic.
The constantly evolving market is easily outpacing attempts to regulate their use, raising widespread fears that more people will fall ill or even die from their unpredictable effects.
Jimmy was my son. He was 20 years old. He loved life. He was a keen sportsman, played hurling, enjoyed football, a very, very fit and healthy young man. I got a phone call to say that he'd had a heart attack, but was on his way to the hospital, was conscious and was talking. Then another call came through to say that he'd gone unconscious and that his brain had begun to swell, and that had crushed his brainstem. We had to make a decision as to when the life support machine was going to be switched off. It wasn't a case of if, it was just a case of when. It actually took 20 minutes for Jimmy to pass away.
Karen believes that Jimmy's condition was caused by smoking a legal cannabis substitute. Figures show that NPS, or novel psychoactive substances, are now linked to more drug-related deaths than ever before.
They're chemically similar to drugs which are misused, but sufficiently different not to be controlled by the Misuse of Drugs Act.
John Ramsey is based at St George's University of London and heads up an independent team which analyses the contents of legal highs.
People generally don't sell things which are toxic. It's not in anybody's interest to sell something which is deliberately toxic. The problem is they're untested. The pharmaceutical industry spends hundreds of millions of dollars and takes years to safety test a compound before it's ever given to a human volunteer. These things are made probably in China, imported into this country and taken by a whole group of people without knowing anything about the effects.
So how do traders get away with selling them on the high street and online?
You will see phrases like not for human consumption or toxic if swallowed or something like that. The reason that's there is to get round the law. So they know we're using legislation which is designed for a different purpose. For example, products which are supplied for gardening use or for cosmetic use, bath salts or plant food. Certainly nothing to do with a product that might give you some kind of high. And of course the real situation is consumers know why they're buying them, traders know why they're supplying them. It's legal under the current guise of the law, so it's a slightly perverse situation.
There is some dispute over the statistics showing a significant rise in deaths from legal highs, and the numbers are still far lower than those who die from alcohol, tobacco and illegal drugs. But the concerns over the dangers have led to a growing number of music festivals introducing bans on the sale of legal highs, including this one in Essex. They've been part of a wider campaign to help raise awareness.
We represent 50 independent festivals from across the UK. We felt like it's not enough to just ban these substances on site, you know. For the festival industry, we have a responsibility to our audiences. We felt that it was very important to educate audiences. I think it will have had an impact, and if it's made people think twice before taking these substances, then it will have been effective, you know.
Tackling the problem is far from straightforward. Experts believe that if consumers really knew the risks and what they were buying, then many wouldn't bother.
Young people's lives are being put at risk by a product which is legal according to the law as things stand. So we want government to come up with bespoke legislation that adequately able to deal with the banning of harmful products, but also somehow creates a definition that future-proofs it. For now, trading standards officers can only deal with the law as it stands, and where I'm sitting, it looks pretty unfit for purpose.
If all we do is ban everything as soon as we see it, all we do is get a replacement. And the problem in doing that is instead of young people being exposed to 1 or 2 new compounds, they're exposed to 4 or 5 or 10 or 20. So I think the pragmatic solution is to let the market regulate. If our knee-jerk reaction always is to ban them, I think it's counterproductive.
But for Jimmy's mother, Karen, a complete ban is the only solution. She's decided to release a photo of her son taken just before he died to warn others about the dangers, not just here, but across Europe and beyond.
Jimmy's not going to be the only one this happens to. These kids are playing Russian roulette with their lives. They don't realise that, you know, themselves and their friend can take the same product and both have completely different reactions to it. Tomorrow's going to be another day where I'm doing something that no mum should have to do. The first was to switch my son's life support machine off. The second was to organise his funeral. Tomorrow I have to register his death. They're not things that a mum's meant to do.
Well, I'm joined in the studio now by Marion Stewart from the Angelus Foundation, the head of Titan, Detective Chief Superintendent Dermot Horrigan, and the Home Office Minister Norman Baker. Welcome to you all, and first of all to you, Marion. Your daughter Hester was 21, a medical student, when she died taking something called GBL. She took it with alcohol. What more can you tell us?
Well, she was at an awards dinner and it was the alcohol and the GBL that actually caused her to die. But the fact is, she wasn't a drug taker, she was an award-winning medical student and a cheerleader. She was the most unlikely person, which is why I set up the Angelus Foundation, because I felt that kids are being duped. They think they're having fun taking legal highs, which they think legal means safe. And they have absolutely no idea. Our schools programme that we've developed, we're finding that over 3/4 of the kids feel angry when they know they're not what they say on the tin, because they're not always legal. Sometimes they have things in them that contain drugs, conventional drugs as well. And parents haven't got the faintest clue that their children are facing danger when they go out for the night.
This is the thing, isn't it, Dermot? Because we've got children, you know, youngsters, teenagers who would feel angry that they were being duped, and we've got parents like us who are terrified about what their children might be taking. And we listen to the experts, we heard them there in the film. Some people saying, yes, what we need are more laws. No, we don't. What do you think, as an expert, should be done? You're on the front line.
Well, it's twofold. I echo very much what Marion says around the message. We do need to raise that message. The fact is that in many instances, organised criminals have moved in to exploit this. Organised criminals are behind this in the same way that they are supplying control drugs like cannabis, cocaine and heroin. They're making vast amounts of profits from this. So we need to target those individuals, but we certainly need to make sure that people realise that the term legal high is a complete misnomer. These are, in many instances, illegal drugs that can cause people to die, they can cause people to have serious health consequences, or they can cause people to have the liberty taken from them.
So, Norman Baker, this is very much on your patch. We've got worried parents, we've got, at its worst, children who are dying, we've got children who are affected long-term in terms of their mental health. Why is the government not doing anything? It seems a chronically serious situation.
It is chronically serious. It's one that's shared by many Western countries. I actually think this government is taking more action than most governments in the world. We've banned over 250 substances already. We've taken action to try and deal with some of these head shops out there. We've empowered the police and we've looked at the legislation presently there. But the reality is, as you heard from the film, they were behind the curve always because new substances are being created almost on a weekly basis in factories outside of the world, in chemical laboratories. So that's why I've set up an expert panel at the end of last year with the best brains in the country to look at practices in other countries, to see what can be done to diminish the harm which young people in particular in this country are facing.
Marion, an expert panel, does it reassure you in any way it's too late for your daughter?
Well, the fact is, we actually must make sure that we don't just change the law, but there has to be a national awareness campaign. We've got to educate parents. I mean, as a small charity, we've got a handbook for parents on our website. We've got a schools programme. We negotiated with the Festival Association to blank out their website and raise awareness about legal highs. It shouldn't be left to us. It should be something we're doing as a government.
Norman, that is a really important point, because we've got a voluntary organisation here that seems to be taking the bull by the horns, and you're talking about expert panels.
No, well, to be fair, I mean, I have written to all the festival organisers this year to ask them not to have any new psychoactive substances at their festivals, and they've agreed to ban them.
But that's voluntary, isn't it? That's voluntary.
Well, it is at the moment, but what we're doing is, as I say, the expert panel is looking at all options. We're looking at prevention and education as well, which I agree with Marion is very important. No country has the answer to this. Whatever country you look at, New Zealand, Ireland, the US, are approaching it in different ways. They've all got their problems. So there's a new challenge the world faces of new drugs being created on a weekly basis in laboratories on the other side of the world.
It's an epidemic.
Your government was due to publish a report in the spring. It's now June and we've still not seen the report. What's happened to it?
It wasn't, well, it was due late spring, I think, but I mean, it's on track. I met the advisory panel I set up last week. They will report to me very shortly and we'll have recommendations by the summer. We have to get this right. We mustn't rush into something and get the wrong answer.
OK, we could do a whole programme on this, Marion. I'm sorry, we're going to have to finish there. And Dermot, thank you to you very much indeed. I should tell you at home, if you're worried, and you probably are, for details of organisations which offer advice and support about drug abuse, you could visit the BBC's Action Line website. The number for that is 08000 688 456. Now, still to come, how a murderer was caught and convicted despite a body never having been found.
No, there's nothing you can...
It was clear that he didn't want the relationship to be over. And down in the basement, he's murdered Suzanne. And all his actions after that are about covering up.
But before that, Martin has got more of his CCTV.
This time, a couple of nasty robberies at shops around the country, starting in the Midlands. Inside a convenience store in Rowley Regis, near Dudley in the West Midlands, on a Saturday afternoon last October. A man in a hooded top rushes in and jumps straight over the counter, waving around a large knife. He grapples with the terrified shopkeeper, his hood coming off in the process. He grabs a handful of notes from the till and then flees the way he came. Now, we don't get a good look at his face, but we did get a great shot of this rather lovely body art on his left arm. That'll do nicely. Think you recognise that ink? Tell us who it belongs to tonight. A man in a black top and a woolly hat walks into a branch of the Co-op in Bournemouth early on a Saturday morning in April. He walks around the shop for a while before approaching the counter where he asks the female cashier for a scratch card. As she opens the till to put the money in, he tries to grab the drawer, waving a knife in her face as he does. She holds on, and he flees with nothing. Tell us who this would-be robber is tonight. If you can name anyone featured in tonight's CCTV, please get in touch in the usual ways. And of course, you can look another time on the website.
Some updates on previous cases now, starting with CCTV we showed you last month of a woman being sexually assaulted while waiting for a bus in central London. Well, following the programme, a 36-year-old man from Essex was arrested. He's due to go on trial later this year.
Now, a case that we featured 7 years ago. In May 2007, a 16-year-old girl was walking home from a friend's house in Ash in Surrey when she was raped. The victim managed to compile an e-fit of her attacker, and he was subsequently identified as Andreas Vervaropoulos, a Greek who had been visiting the UK at the time. Well, he was extradited to the UK, and in April, the 27-year-old admitted the rape. He was sentenced to 9 years in prison.
Last year, we showed you this CCTV of a burglary at a farmhouse in Todmorden in West Yorkshire in March 2013. Well, as a result, the man in the body warmer was identified as 30-year-old Benjamin Nightingale from Rochdale, and last month he was sentenced to 876 days in prison, which works out at just under 2.5 years. Nice one.
Now, many of our wanted faces often get arrested after Crimewatch, but we wanted to tell you about these two in particular. This is Francis O'Donoghue. He was wanted for shooting two brothers at a traveller's site in Essex last August. Well, following the programme, he was found and subsequently admitted his role in the shootings, and 2 weeks ago he was sentenced to 16.5 years in prison, so a great result.
Finally, Joseph Vincent Garagos. We asked for your help finding him back in January. He was part of a gang which stole more than £50,000 from two security guards delivering cash to a bank in Herefordshire in 2010. Well, as a direct result of your calls, police were able to track him down, and 3 weeks ago he was sentenced to 9 years in prison. It just goes to show what a difference your calls actually make.
Now, last month marked the 4th anniversary of the murder of Suzanne Pilley. The popular 38-year-old vanished without trace as she made her way to work through Edinburgh city centre. Well, what followed was one of the most detailed investigations in Scottish police history. But for the officers involved and those who knew and loved Suzanne, the case is far from closed.
Lying somewhere and nobody knows. As if nobody loved her.
I think we, the family, should decide where she's laid to rest.
I used to worry how she would survive without us, but I never thought we would have to survive without her.
Suzanne Pilley was a 38-year-old woman. She worked as a bookkeeper in the city centre of Edinburgh. She was a very outgoing person. She had a large circle of friends and she was really close to her family.
She's just really happy-go-lucky. She had a lot of friends. She was cycling or just things like that. Just loved the outdoor life.
And doing things for charity. And she was always smiling.
But on the 4th of May 2010, Suzanne failed to show up for work. It was completely out of character, and police were soon called.
We were able to piece together our last movements. We were able to establish that a neighbour had seen her leaving the house just after 7. Through our bus passes, we were able to establish that she had taken a bus, 2 buses, into the city centre. She'd left the bus in the city centre, which was normal. She'd gone to a local Sainsbury's, purchased some breakfast, a yoghurt, and we were able to watch her walking across St Andrew's Square and disappearing round the corner. The last camera is just a matter of 60 metres from her door. There's a void space between two cameras, and that's where the front door to her office is. We could establish that she hadn't continued past her work, she hadn't returned, she hadn't gone straight over into another street. If she had done so, we'd have been able to see her in CCTV. So Suzanne must have made it to work that day.
But how could she have got that close and not arrived at her desk? Police delved further.
They started to look at emails, and it became very clear very quickly that Suzanne was having a relationship. David Gilroy was a colleague, very effective at work. He was a problem solver. He was highly regarded within the office. He was a married man with 2 children, and he was clearly in a relationship with Suzanne, and no one else in the office knew anything about it. It became apparent from family and friends that Suzanne was determined to end the relationship.
What was she dressed like? Where was she going? What kind of...
When officers came to speak to her colleagues the day after she disappeared, Gilroy was out of town at a meeting. He was asked to come to a police station when he returned to Edinburgh.
It was 11 p.m. When he finally got to the police station.
For her to not be at work and for no one to know where she was.
When the officers finished the interview, they noticed marks in the back of Gilroy's hands. He'd said that they'd been as a result of gardening.
She's been wearing a pair of gloves.
He was asked if he would come in the following day to have those marks photographed. The officers dealing with him realised he had concealer, some sort of makeup, which there immediately they felt was, unusual, suspicious.
When they checked, there was no sign of any gardening having been done at Gilroy's house.
It was at that point that we realised that Gilroy was a suspect.
In the 3 weeks before Suzanne vanished, Gilroy had called and texted her 450 times.
Hi Suzanne, it's David here. Hi Suzanne, I was just wanting to have a chat. Hi David. Have a chat. We can swap everything out. I think both of us probably pushed things a bit too far last
I'll
night.
try again in a wee minute, bye.
But on the day she went missing, all the calls stopped.
Well, I was the last one to see her. She said, "Bye, Dad." She's giving me a peck in the cheek, and that was it. That's the last we seen of her.
I knew that there was something far wrong, but I always thought we'd get her back. But as the weeks went by, I did think that she's not going to come back.
CCTV also showed Gilroy had taken the bus to work that day, arriving shortly before Suzanne. He had logged onto his computer, but was away from his desk for an hour. Later, he returned home and picked up his car, driving it back to the office's basement. But the key evidence came from specialist police dogs brought in to search for traces of a body.
In 3 distinct areas, they gave a reaction to their handlers. Area under the stairwell, an area leading from the stairs, and that is a short distance to a fire door, and beyond the fire door into the garage itself.
The dogs also reacted when they examined the boot of Gilroy's car. Police believed they now had a picture of what happened to Suzanne Pilley.
David, how many times do I have to say this? Okay, it's finished.
That morning, he's been there waiting and Suzanne arriving. It was clear that Suzanne had ended the relationship.
There's nothing you can say.
And clear that he didn't want the relationship to be over.
It's over.
And down in the basement, he's murdered Suzanne. And all his actions after that are about covering up.
You wouldn't think a workmate could actually do that in her workplace, to go back up the stairs and start working again. with his other colleagues, like, you know, and knowing Suzanne was lying down in the garage.
I used to worry how she would survive without us, but I never thought we would have to survive without her.
Detectives were sure Suzanne had been murdered, but what had Gilroy done with her body?
One of the first things that Gilroy did when he went back to his computer was to create a diary entry, to create an excuse for him to travel to Argyll the next day. The cameras travelling from Edinburgh across to the west coast of Scotland were giving us images, intermittent images of his vehicle travelling along that route.
One particular section of the journey stood out, where Gilroy could not be traced. In both directions, he turned his mobile phone off, and a distance that should have taken 37 minutes took him more than 2 hours.
There was no doubt he was trying to hide where he was travelling. It was clear that Gilroy had left the road. He's travelled through the Argyll forest, during which time he's had ample opportunity to dispose of Suzanne's body.
Despite extensive searches in Argyll, Suzanne's body has never been found. Nevertheless, in April 2012, David Gilroy was handed a life sentence for Suzanne Pilley's murder.
Justice had been done, but I felt so sad after that, because we weren't going to get her back. Lying somewhere and nobody knows. As if nobody loved her.
The investigation will never be closed until Suzanne's found.
I always say that the door's just ajar. It's not fully closed yet. And that's what I'd really like, to put closure on it for myself and the rest of my family.
She was such a happy person. We try hard to be happy.
Utterly heartbreaking.
It is absolute torture for them not knowing. Gilroy refuses to say, he refuses to accept his guilt, he's appealed twice. It is sickening what he's still putting the family through.
At trial, the judge praised the investigation.
Yes, a murder case without a body is as tough as it gets. It was all about detail. For example, when he moved the body, the CCTV shows his car arrive at work. There's nothing on the back shelf. When you next see the car, you get a glimpse of an umbrella because, of course, he's emptied the boot to put Suzanne inside. After he dumps the body, the umbrella is back in the boot. Now, that spot came from 5 frames of CCTV, less than a second in real time. Astonishing work.
It really is. And the search, importantly, continues.
It does, but they need help. It is a massive area. They are focused on the rest and be thankful part of the forest. It was the day before the last general election. Did anyone see a silver Vauxhall Vectra? The key times are between 1 and 3:30 in the afternoon, 7 and 9 in the evening. We heard Suzanne's mum say, it's as if nobody loved her being left out there. Well, she was loved hugely, and they're desperate to get her back.
Indeed, Matthew, thank you very much. I should tell you that there are detectives from Police Scotland still working then, as Matthew says, to find Suzanne's body, and they are here tonight in our studio. If you can help them, please call. Now, you may remember that back in 2012, we appealed for your help in tracing a very valuable sundial designed by the renowned sculptor Henry Moore. It had been stolen. Well, the sundial, which is worth around about £500,000, was recovered after a scrap metal dealer watching Crimewatch recognised it, having quite innocently bought it. He duly called the studio and the sundial was returned to the Henry Moore Foundation. Well, rather sadly, another Henry Moore statue, which is thought to be worth around £3 million, has now been stolen. The work, titled Standing Figure, was taken from the Glenkiln Sculpture Park in Dumfries and Galloway in Scotland. D.I. Colin Burney from Police Scotland is looking into this case. What more can you tell us?
Well, the Standing Figure was one of several sculptures which were on public display within Glenkiln Sculpture Park in Dumfries in Scotland. It formed part of an outdoor collection by Henry Moore and other artists, and also included his world-renowned piece known as the King and Queen. Now, the Standing Figure, which we can see here, it's 7 foot tall, it's cast in bronze, and it had been in public display for over 60 years.
And now it's gone?
Yes, unfortunately, sometime between 4 o'clock on Thursday the 10th of October last year and 8:30 the following morning, it has been stolen from Glenkiln Sculpture Park. And as you can see from this photograph here, it's obvious that there's been considerable force used to remove it from its location, and we believe that due to the size and weight of the sculpture that several persons have been involved in the theft.
Now, just briefly, I know this sounds like an obvious question, but it isn't really. Why do you think it was taken? Just briefly.
3 options that we can see. It's either been stolen to order because it is valued at £3 million, possibly it was sold on the black market, or possibly more likely that it's been stolen for its scrap metal value, which would only be a few hundred pounds. I'd just like to mention that there is a £50,000 reward which has been offered by the owner for any information which leads to the recovery of the Standing Figure.
OK, I'm sorry to have to stop you there, Colin, but thanks
Thank
very much. Bit pushed for time. Let me just get a quick update now on what's come in on the phones. Here's Martin.
Well, we've had lots of calls coming in on wanted face number 1, Charlie Casey. Several calls mentioning a vehicle he may well be using. Lots of potential sightings. Those are being followed up now. And wanted face number 4, James Ward. Lots of calls coming in. Lots of people placing him in exactly the same area.
Now, before we go, I should let you know that if you are keen to help us crack more crime, then Crimewatch Roadshow is going to be back on your screens next Monday.
For the next 4 weeks, the Crimewatch Roadshow team will be on a mission.
We're going to be out tackling the crimes that affect us all.
From thieves to fraudsters, illegal drivers to stolen pets.
Every morning, we'll be working with police forces right across the country.
On patrol with officers using the latest technology.
Live every weekday morning, it's your chance to help get more bad guys behind bars. It all starts at 9:15 a.m. next Monday on BBC One. We'll see you then.
Right, that's it. Join us for an update 10:35. Bye-bye for now.
What do you want, Harry?